Hey, good morning, everyone. How's it going today? Coach Alvarez here. Another episode, Coffee with Coach. Bringing those mental vitamins to you today on this Saturday morning. Hope everyone out there is doing well. Again, if you didn't wake up on the right side of the bed this morning, these videos are to help you do so. Put the mind in the right place. So, again, just listening to some more Jocko as I'm getting ready for my, get my day started here as always. And good morning. And just talking about not being good enough, all right? Not having confidence in yourself. Someone, people message Jocko and the other guy, Echo, that's on the podcast, and they read off questions all the time, and then they answer the questions. And one of the things that they got on this podcast was, well, what do you do when you don't feel like you're ready? You don't feel like you're good enough. You know, your self-confidence is low. And one of the things that they talk about is asking questions. You know, how do you prepare and get ready for something that you're not really good at, that you don't really know too much about? Because Jocko's talking about in the SEALs team, right when you're getting kind of comfortable with a position, they move you up the chain of command. Like, you're always getting new leadership positions. He goes, so we're always having to learn new things. And how do you learn new things? You ask questions. You try to prepare yourself as much as possible. And the thing that they say not to do is trying to, like, there's a time to, like, fake it till you make it kind of thing. I kind of use that in class. Like, sometimes you're not feeling good, or you're not, you didn't, like I said, you just mind isn't in the right place, and you got to kind of fake it a little bit, and you got to just, put your mind in the right place until it is in the right place, right? But just trying to fake like you know something and you don't really know it, that's where the nervousness comes from. That's where the self-doubt comes from. How do you stop all that? How do you get rid of the self-doubt and the low confidence? By learning, asking questions, humility. I love the way he talks about that, because he's talking about humility a lot in a lot of his podcasts, the word humility. And he's just like, man, the way to solve that is to ask questions. He's like, there's nothing abnormal about feeling, like you don't know anything. If you don't know something, you just don't know it. But how do you know it? How do you get to know it? You got to put yourself in positions to know it, and you got to ask, ask questions, thoughtful questions, meaningful questions. And until you gain that confidence, that you need to do the job well, right? So he's just kind of answering the guy, because the guy's moving from one part of the country to another. He's taking on a different position. He's asking Jocko for that advice. Like, how do I go from this job across the country to take this job here that's higher up? How do I prepare myself for that? And he's talking about being humble and, just trying to prepare yourself as much as possible. I'll put that in jiu-jitsu perspective. A lot of times, when you do jiu-jitsu, you don't know anything when you first walk in, right? Like, I always use the example, like with the Matrix and Neo. No one's going to put a helmet on you and you just wake up out of your sleep and be like, I know jiu-jitsu. It doesn't work that way. The way it works is you gotta be put in bad positions. You have to, you gotta get smashed a little bit. You gotta get frustrated. You have to have some pretty bad rainy days on the mat until you start to learn, until you start to develop, the skills that you need to not make the same mistakes anymore. Sometimes, well, I would say not sometimes, I would say most of the time, students will continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again until they figure it out on their own. Then I have certain students, they make a mistake, hand goes up, hey, coach, how do I stop that? How do I fix that? What am I doing wrong here? Man, I love those students, because those students understand that, they don't know what they don't know. So how do you fix that? You got to ask questions. And then what happens? They stop making the same mistakes. They're not making the mistakes as often as they were before. Things start to develop in a way to where that position that they were weak at, or whatever they were weak at, gets stronger. Then what happens? Self-confidence goes up. You know that when you get put in this bad position, you can work your way out. Because why? Because you've been there, so much that, and you ask the right questions, that you're escaping now. You're doing things that will get you out of a tough position, versus the other students that ask no questions, get smashed on the mat, go to the locker room, change, walk right out of the academy, drive home, and think about it, and like, man, like, I don't know how to fix that. Well, and they just keep hitting their head against the wall over and over and over again. Next day they come to class, same mistakes, same problem. No questions asked, nothing was answered, nothing was fixed. Go home, on the way home, thinking about it, at work, thinking about it, come back to class, get smashed again, same problem, same arm bar, same choke, same guard pass, same everything, and nothing gets fixed until one day they figure it out, okay? Or you can raise your hand right away and just show humility, show humbleness, like, hey, I don't know what the problem is. Can you help me? My answer most of the time is like, well, you got to show me exactly where we're having trouble at so we can get to the root of the problem. You can't just say, hey, how do I get out of side control, right? Okay, first off, how'd you get in side control? Okay, all right. And then second, like, how are they holding you in side control? Because there's a lot of different holds in positions in the way people position their body that can stick you in a position like that. Okay, this is how they pass your guard. All right, we fix this first. That's the root of the problem, because you didn't get grips or you didn't do this or that. And then when they did pass your guard, now we do this, and then we do this, and we do this, and then we work your way out and get your guard back, stuff like that. So, and in the Jocko podcast, what I really like about it is he does jiu-jitsu. He said he's done jiu-jitsu for over like 20 years or something like that. So he uses jiu-jitsu a lot for examples in his podcast and stuff like that. So, and I obviously can relate to that. And I do the same thing, because life and jiu-jitsu it's just the same thing, man. Like it's they just connect together so well. Like there's so many things in life that you can just use jiu-jitsu as a way to just get better at. So how do you deal with self-doubt and thinking to yourself that you're not good enough? Ask questions, learn. Like he said, though, he did say in the podcast, you got to ask thoughtful, meaningful questions, because there's some things where, like, if you walk into a meeting or something like that, he uses this as an example, and there's some things that you should know, but you didn't study and you didn't prepare like you're supposed to. That's not a good look, obviously. Like you didn't take the time to get yourself prepared and put yourself in a position to where you know those answers. So there's some questions because you hear some things sometimes where, like, there's really no dumb questions. You hear people say that all the time, which is mostly true. But like what he's saying here, there's times where there are, because some questions you should have the answer to because you should have prepared. So how do you deal with that? This again, the self-doubt, not thinking that you are good enough and you are worthy of having a certain position at work or whatever the case may be, is to learn. It's kind of like with the videos I'm doing now. One day I was just like, you just got to do it. Are people going to listen? Are people going to watch? Is it worth my time to do it? What am I going to talk about? Like all this stuff, then you start talking yourself out of it, because that's just kind of like human nature. This is like what people do to themselves. They don't think that they're good enough. So you start talking yourself out of things, and you got to do the opposite. You got to talk yourself into things, right? Because people can tell you all day that you're really good at something and give you compliments or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, do you believe in you to go out and do what it is that you're supposed to do? And they use one example they use is like tournament wise. You can have someone out there that's like a jiu-jitsu champion or MMA champion, and they're learning from white belts, blue belts, whatever, asking questions. Then you got the guy that thinks he knows everything, doesn't prepare, then he goes out there and then obviously it shows, right? So how do you deal with not believing in yourself, man, you got to start believing in it. It's a self-talk, man. This is what all these videos are about, right? It's just your mindset. At the end of the day, man, what are you telling yourself? And, you know, what are the things that you're putting in your mind every single day, you know? So it's very, very important that you wake up every day and you start to learn. You start building self-confidence and getting rid of self-doubt by telling yourself good things and reading good things and listening to good things. Because believe me, I know so many people that just talk so bad about themselves, and I can see why they're not progressing or going into places that they would like to go in life. Because when you hear them talk, it is not good. Okay, it is not good. You are not really going to make it too far in anything or get better in anything if the way you talk about yourself is negative. Okay, so how do you deal with not being good enough? Man, it starts with you. It starts with you believing in yourself, and then it's also starting to making sure you are asking the right questions and preparing yourself to put yourself in a position to where you are confident. Because why? Because you're starting to get those answers. So anyone having some issues with that out there, let's change that mindset up. Don't walk around the rest of the day thinking that you're not worthy, you're not good enough. Man, again, like I said, I talk to so many people, and that's what comes out of their mouth, and it just really, really just gets to me, because it's like, man, you got to have more love for yourself than what you have, you know. And so my thing is man, let's start listening to better things, reading better things, and telling yourself every single day that you are worth it, and then go get it. All right, so let's go get it today, guys. You guys have a great Saturday afternoon. We'll see you.